Good morning, welcome back. It is now September 16th. We're about halfway through the month of September, and things out here are coming along slowly. We have dried out fairly well from last week's rain, but it looks like there was a few showers, especially up here where I am by Carmen Gay right now. There's fresh puddles, so I think it did rain up here yesterday a little bit, and the canola behind me, even though it's ripe enough to harvest, is certainly good and tough this morning. We also had a pretty heavy dew overnight. Here in a different canola field, you can see we are starting to dry down pretty good in here. This canola is pretty much ripe and ready to harvest, but we're just waiting on some of these weeds, like in these weedy patches, to dry down. This did get sprayed with Regulone Ion last week, and so far we're seeing a pretty decent effect in here. You can really see the tops of the kochia starting to brown off. Some of the Russian thistle is getting a little bit even better of a reaction. You can see this one is burning down pretty well, but there's still some green on the bottom. But it should give us, enough dry down on some of these weeds anyways. We can run a combine through some of these weedier areas. Walking around fields, I'm not seeing a whole lot of winter annuals or anything yet, but there is lots of volunteer coming up. So this is wheat stubble. You can see there's a fair bit of wheat starting to come up here. Here we got some foxtail. I have noticed a couple patches of downy brome starting to emerge here and there. So now that that is coming up, that means it's a good time to spray, get control of those guys. You're much better off to control downy brome and foxtail in the fall rather than in the spring. And also, in this field here, this is a kind of a low spot that suffers from wind erosion. And so you can see we have patches of Russian thistle and kochia here. So now is a good time to get rid of them too. Some of them, they've been harvested off. They are starting to regrow. They're healthy, they're green. They've just gotten rained on last week. So now is a good time to hit these guys and get them sprayed really right up till the end of September. Conditions should be pretty good for doing some post-harvest weed control. Potato harvest is ongoing this morning, although moisture conditions are definitely a bit wet, especially down here where we're looking in this low spot. You can see a tractor is disconnected from the potato cart there. The cart and the tractor got stuck. They've both been pulled out, but now they need to get reconnected. Other than that, they're trying to load into trucks, and the trucks are getting stuck in the field entrance over here. So they're currently getting pulled out by one of the potato diggers. So yeah, lots going on out in the field here this morning. Well, it's been almost 2 weeks since this field of cover crop, which is oats plus brassica, has been sprayed with silencer for flea beetle control, and things in here are looking much better. Now, the oats do have a little bit of yellow dwarf in them. You can see a little bit of the effects kind of here and there, but for the most part, it's very low infection level compared to some of the fields farther east around Picture Butte, Colehurst area. The brassicas are definitely recovering. A lot of the new growth has a lot less damage on it compared to the old growth, but you can still see we do have a couple flea beetles. And that's not surprising. You're never going to get rid of all of them. Flea beetles become resistant extremely fast, especially late in the season, where a lot of the flea beetle population has already been sprayed out in many areas, and the survivors do tend to be resistant. But it looks like we did knock the population back enough that a lot of the brassica is really starting to recover. Here I'm at the potato storage facility, so we're currently filling up the first bay here. This truck is unloading here into the conveyor. Goes up into our surge bin up here. Fills that up. We got an air cleaner over here. Manual sorting is going on in the tent there. And then everything rides back down the conveyor up into the shed. Here they are being stacked inside of the shed. This bay is almost full. There's a massive amount of tons of potatoes in here. This shed goes back quite a ways. There's still some relatively immature canola fields out there like this one here on irrigation. Now it is starting to see some pretty good color change, and it's getting better every day, but a lot of these plants like this one on the main stem here, there is still some green seeds up at the top. However, they are getting solid. So things are coming along. These are going to start to change color here pretty quickly, and it is only Monday. So give it a couple days of sun, maybe towards the end of the week, we should be at the threshold for Regulone, which we want to see pretty much 100% color change in that main stem, 80% overall through the plant. Right now, we're just not quite there. Some plants are, but there's still quite a few green ones. So looking like towards the end of the week, this should be at the right timing. Hopefully third try's the charm, getting my canola trials finished. I had to quit last week because they got rained on a little bit, which made them too tough to run through the harvester. We did have a hell of a dew this morning, but it's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so hopefully things have dried down enough I can get these last 3 processed. So wish me luck. I got 5 full batteries, and we'll see what I can get done. All right, the trials are finally finished. Now I can get all these samples processed and start to come up with some numbers here. Interesting thing was, so this was 1 and 2 that I did today, and this was number 3. Number 3 actually required 2 bags. Well, 1.25-ish, I'd say. So this was the everything trial, which had absolutely all products at full rate, applied 6 times throughout the season. So I definitely saw a response there, and saw it in pod counts earlier in the season as well. But it'll be interesting to see whether the dollars make sense, and I don't think it will. This field of oats, it was being badly affected by barley yellow dwarf virus, has now been worked under. I believe it is going to be reseeded into some type of forage grass. So we'll start working on that here in the next few days. But right now, she's just been worked up and looks nice and clean. It is now Wednesday morning. We did have a heavy dew overnight again, and there is a chance for showers on and off today. So I don't think there'll be much harvesting going on again today. Here we have some fall rye that went in the ground. I believe this was yesterday morning and the day before, so just in the last couple days here. Fairly wet field conditions right now, but let's take a quick look in the seed row here, see what we're finding. Okay, so right there is the seed row. You can see we got some fall rye seed. It is treated. You can see we got a nice worm in there. So we're sitting at about, 1.25 or so of depth. Everything here looking pretty good so far. This stuff is going to be germinating and emerging out of the ground pretty quick in these growing conditions. Well, there's still quite a few fields like this. There's definitely some harvest frustration out there where it's just been too hard to pick up a lot of these swaths. It's been too wet the last week or two with the moisture that I wish we'd received this summer that has now come at harvest time. This swath here is showing, what we're seeing here. We got some volunteer barley is starting to grow through the swath now. So that is not ideal. It makes it a little bit harder to pick up and run the swath through the machine when you're fighting some of this green material, and then it'll only get worse with time. It doesn't seem like the heads themselves are really sprouting yet, but definitely anything that has fallen off and hit the ground really is. So we'll see what happens in the next week, as hopefully some of these get a chance to dry out. Once we get farther to the west from Nobleford, there wasn't nearly as much rain yesterday, and things are starting to dry down now. The sun and the wind has come out. So the Safflower is getting combined here right now. So not a whole lot of acres have been done yet, but let's pop the drone up in the air and see how things look. Here's what the Safflower grain looks like. So you can see it looks somewhat like a white sunflower seed. See, we also got a nice grasshopper leg stuck in there. Weighing up at about 44 pounds a bushel. Value is about $1 a pound on the market. Here comes West Wind Air Spray doing some desiccation on some canola today. Looking good, some nice flying. Here in this canola stubble field, this field has been harrowed, which I always suggest after taking off canola, because it really helps to incorporate any leftover canola seed with the ground, get better soil to seed contact, and we can get all that volunteer all germinated and emerged in the fall, which is going to hopefully get controlled by the frost, or if it gets too far advanced and we don't get frost, we might have to spray it out. But either way, take care of all that volunteer in the fall, and then you don't have to worry about it so much in the spring. Well, my sorghum field is looking pretty good this week. We got lots more head emergence going on in here now compared to the last time I was in this field. These heads are looking pretty good. I don't know how much of a chance they are going to have to fill out. Sorghum is one of many crops that is absolutely not tolerant of any sort of frost or anything even close to frost. So this crop's days are probably numbered. I wouldn't be surprised at all if in the next 2 weeks it gets frosted off. Well, the time has arrived to spray out the fall rye stubble. There's not a whole lot for weeds in here, just a little bit of lamb's quarters here and there, a little bit of morning glory. But you can see we got a really good stand of volunteer rye in here. A little bit harder to see in the stubble, but it's pretty much throughout the field. It's at a good enough stage now. We should be able to get good coverage and get her under control. We're just going to come in here probably with some Black Hawk and some glyphosate. Friday afternoon now. I did make the mistake yesterday of washing my work truck last night, so you'd never know better now, but conditions out here are pretty muddy. It's been raining all morning here on and off. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we had at least a ½ inch of rain at this point, so everything is good and wet. It is looking like the forecast for the weekend, early next week, is looking pretty favorable, but it's going to take us a bit of time to dry out from this one, so we'll see you next week.